We're here to talk about conflict of interest best practices. And I'm Jen Flock. I am the product owner for Kuali Research Compliance. I've been with the Kuali Research endeavor for the past 9 years, starting with MIT COEAS, then the foundation, serving as QA manager, business analyst, functional consultant, and now I'm the product owner for Kuali Research compliance modules, which include COI, IRB, IACUC, and others as we build further into the future. Before Kuali, I worked at NIH for over 15 years, including 3 years as project manager in the Electronic Research Administration program and 10 years with the National Cancer Institute as a research program specialist, primarily in the Division of Cancer Prevention's Protocol Information Office. And today I'm happy to be joined by Renee Harada from the University of Hawaii. She has contributed her functional expertise and helped engage the community throughout the design and development of Kuali Research COI. It's been absolutely wonderful working with her. Renee currently serves as compliance specialist in the Office of Research Services and provides administrative support for conflicts of interest compliance in the University of Hawaii system. Prior to this, she spent 4 years in research compliance, assisting the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Research and Research Integrity Office with research misconduct, conflicts of interest, and responsible conduct of research. Preceding her administrative career, Renee conducted microbiology and biochemical research for 6 years and also served as a quality assurance officer for the Interregional Research Project Number 4 Western Region Unit in Hawaii. Also, Renee received both her bachelor's in zoology and master's degree in microbiology from the University of Hawaii. So she brings a lot of great experience with her. So we'll get started in a moment. We will demonstrate how Kuali COI can support best practices within your institution's business processes and local policies. We'll cover configuration approaches, show how Kuali Research COI facilitates researchers reporting of financial interest to their compliance office and the compliance office's review of the disclosures, and also how grants office and department administrators can follow COI reporting status within the projects that they manage. So with that, I'll hand it over to Renee.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I was going to say this morning, but actually this afternoon. I'm just going to get started talking a little bit about what we're planning to do at the University of Hawaii and some of the configurations of the module that we are using. Hang on, I'm going to be a little clumsy here. Can everybody see the module now on the screen?
Yes, it looks great.
Okay. So basically at UH, we're going to switch our process. It's very new for us, and we're going to have a paper-based system to an electronic system. And we have not started yet, but we are on the verge of starting very soon. And one of the key things that I think we're going to have to do, at least for us in this big transition, is a lot of training and education. You know, it is something very new, although it's very easy to use. The modules you know, very user-friendly. To tie in with the compliance aspect, it's, I think, you know, requires a lot of training and education effort as well. So what we're instructing people to do is before they even submit a proposal, you know, after our go-live date, before they do any kind of proposal, we want them to go to the COI module and complete a disclosure. That way, you know, we have them in the system, and we have their disclosure on record. And then from there, as I'll talk about, that's when our business process really kind of kicks in. But I'll get to that in a few minutes. But basically what I'm showing you here is the configuration menu for the COI module. And as the COI admin, or if you have multiple people, you know, you folks can configure the COI module to meet your institutional needs. So you have like disclosure types here. So we're doing an annual, and we are doing a rolling. Rolling meaning what we're doing is based, depending on when an individual submits a disclosure, that's going to determine the expiration date. So based on the rolling, you know, because we're encouraging people to do it prior to proposal submission, they virtually can go into the system, you know, anytime. We want them to do it, you know, clearly well in advance of their proposal submission, but, you know, people tend to do things when they need to. So we felt the rolling would fit our needs because they can kind of do it, you know, as they would like to. So that's the expiration rule we based on their date of submission. And then some other configurations, you can control whether you want the instructions to display, you know, all the time, or without having to click on it. There's an auto approve, which we're not going to be using at this time, as well as the auto assign. And this last one was something that we had to, Kuali had to help us with and added this function for us, because our process is that, you know, once you disclose, you'll meet you'll meet regulation in terms of disclosure submission. And we have, in the PD side, we're utilizing the certification question to ensure that, you know, somebody without any SFI, you know, is still current, you know, and has no changes to that. And so for our process, this really helps us because most of the investigators here do not have SFI to disclose. And then the last one on this page is the screening validations, where if they don't have any SFI, you know, they can skip through the process a little, because there's nothing, no more information needs to be added, and they just go straight to the certification step. And then also, if they do have an SFI, or if they answered yes to having financial entities, they'll have to fill in that information before they can go forward. The other one I wanted to talk about was a disclosure requirement, because this is where you're going to configure it for your institution. So this is where you're going to select which project types you want to require disclosure for. And you can, you know, proposal, protocols, different protocols, and then award. So for today, though, we're going to show you the proposal disclosure requirement that selected here. In that itself, you can also further select who's required to disclose based on the project role. So for us, we'll have, you know, everyone is required to disclose, and then project status. Let's see. So I think that's, I can talk about the project declarations a little bit, because there's, so here, project declarations is when somebody has an SFI and their projects, or, you know, let's say proposals, will populate their disclosure. And then they have the opportunity to select what type of disposition they believe they have. So this is by the reporter. And then down here, the schools can configure who sets disposition and what kinds of disposition can be set. So what we have selected for the demo. And what we're using at Hawaii too is the admin can set the overall project disposition, and then reviewers can make recommendations. And you can input these values based on what your institution uses. Does anybody have any questions so far? So what I'm going to show you now then is just from the admin view, I am going to show you one of the users that will show you in the proposal that has no SFI. So he has no SFI, he has no financial entity information to complete. So because he's answered no to all the screening questions, you can see down here, everything is empty because essentially he has no significant financial interest. So his disclosure is approved. I just kind of wanted to show you that so you'll understand the next view that I'm going to show you in PD. Excuse me, that's going to show his disclosure status in the proposal itself. So we're back in the main research menu. I'm going to open a proposal that has some investigators already, information is already filled in just for, in the interest of time. Okay, sorry, hang on 1 second. So when you open a proposal, this is the first, your first screen that opens. It's pretty much just the basic proposal details. What kind of proposal, the activity, your title, your sponsor, and sponsor is important if you're going to set up sponsor hierarchy at your institution for COI disclosure, meaning you can select which sponsors, depending on your policy, which sponsor you're going to require COI disclosures for proposal submission. For us, though, at Hawaii, we don't use the hierarchy because for our investigators, regardless of sponsor, we require disclosure. So the main part for COI is on the key personnel tab, where you can see the disclosure, a person's disclosure status, as well as a disposition status. That's a very new function. But so anyway, so you can see we have 4 pre-populated key people here. J Tester was the one that I just showed you. And the others, Kate Woods and Chu. So for Hawaii's purposes, with that configuration on not requiring an update when a person doesn't have any SFI, so that's why this disclosure status shows, because he is up to date. He has completed his COI disclosure. He has no SFI. So even though he's just been listed on this proposal, his disclosure status remains up to date. And now, before you can submit this proposal to workflow, in this certification question, I'm not going to show you all of it, but we utilize a question here to confirm that his COI disclosure is still accurate and current. He has no changes since the time he's submitted the disclosure, so we can rely on that status. So the purpose of this status, at least for Hawaii, is we wanted the reporter to see, their disclosure status, as well as any OSP or contracts and grants person who will process the proposal. We wanted both of them, to be able to see that an individual has an up-to-date disclosure, or, like the other two need to update, and then this last one has not yet disclosed yet, meaning, they haven't ever gone to the COI module to do a disclosure. It's important for our OSP or contracts person to see that, so that they know, okay, if everybody's up to date, I should be okay to approve, and we should be good to submit to sponsor. But when you see others that need update, then we're going to have people follow up and get those disclosure updates taken care of before we submit to sponsor. So that's how we're trying to use this disclosure status to meet the submission requirements. And Kate and Woods have update needed because they have SFI. So since they were added to the proposal and have SFI, they're now going to need to disclose on this proposal to determine whether there's a relationship or not. Does anybody have any questions so far? Otherwise, I'll give it to Jen, and she'll show you on the COI side what happens for those updates.
Thanks, Renee. Can you, there we go. I'm going to show my screens. Okay. So what I'm going to pick up on is one of the investigators that was needing to update their disclosure. So Renee walked through Joe Tester, who doesn't have an SFI, has already put a disclosure into the system. In this case, I'm going to show you what Della Woods needs to complete and what that process will look like. As you may recall, Della Woods has a proposal. She's named on the proposal, and she has a pre-existing disclosure, but she has significant financial interests. So because of that, her disclosure status changed to update needed, and we also, based on the way we've set up, configured the notifications, the email notifications, Della Woods gets this email saying because she has been named on this protocol or this proposal as a PI, an MPI, then she needs to go and update her disclosure. And from this email, she can go directly into the system and update her disclosure. And I've logged in. I need to sign out from the last person and go in as Della Woods. There we go. Renee was in as a admin. I am now in as a reporter. So I'm Della Woods. I can see when my disclosure would expire if I didn't have to update it. And then here I am seeing the message that says your annual disclosure needs updates due to new projects to disclose. So I'm going to go in as Della Woods and update my disclosure. And here are some of the features that Renee had talked about. So one thing that you can see as I'm logging in into the system, and I see that Della Woods has the instructions appearing for her from the very beginning. Instead of having to click on the instructions to view them, based on the configuration that University of Hawaii is using, and I know another couple of other schools that plan to use this as well, is they want the instructions to be visible to the reporter when they go in and do their disclosure, rather than relying on them to read the instructions after they've clicked on them. Another thing you'll notice in terms of configuration is that we have the ability within instruction set up to use some formatting such as bold and italics, and also link to additional policies as you may wish. In this case, I'm going to go in and redo my screening questions. Because I had filled these out before, but I now have a new research project, I need to think about them again based on the fact that I have a new research project and potentially a different financial interest to think about. So I've gone through, answered all my questions, and now here I am at a summary screen. I can go back and edit those questions, or I can go on to the next step, which I'm going to do. Here's a financial entity, the significant financial interest that I had entered before, and this is the reason that I had to update my disclosure instead of being in the position that Joe Tester was, where he did not have significant financial entities, so he was considered in compliance. So here I need to go to the next step. I've filled out my relationship status on the other projects that I've disclosed on in the past, but the new one, 61, that Renee had just shown, this one is the one I need to disclose on. So I'm going to go in and update that, and I can easily see that this is the additional study that I need to declare on based on the action required. And here's where I can indicate what my relationship is as the reporter. And I can add some additional comments. Click Done. Now that I've completed that step, I can go into the next step, which is the certification, and complete this disclosure. So now as Della Woods, I've submitted my disclosure for approval. And the next step would be for the COI admin to go in and view that disclosure. Another thing I will show you here is the COI admin also is getting an email saying, oh, there's a new disclosure for you to review submitted by Della Woods today. And there's a direct link that they can go to in order to view that disclosure if they wish. And of course, when things are busy, the COI admin may be in the system every day and just is going to their dashboard, sorting it for the ones that have recently been submitted. Depending upon the volume, you may not want to include that email, but for other schools, particularly those that have a static annual due date, you may want to think about how you want to do the email, whether you want to send it to the admin or not. So in this case, we've got Della Woods disclosure. As the admin, I can review it. I can add specific comments. I can send this to a reviewer. In this case, I will look at the additional reviewers. I can see here that in the past, Della Woods has had a management plan based on her previous projects and financial entities, and that's still available. In this case, I'm going to assign the disclosure to another reviewer, and as the admin, I'm going to now leave it up to that reviewer, and I'm going to log out and sign in as the reviewer, so I can show this full process here. So here, as the reviewer, I see my own personal disclosures first in my dashboard, and then the ones that I need to review because I've been assigned them in this second section here. And here I'm going to go in and review Della Woods' disclosure. And I can also do comments, indicate comments. I think this is okay. I've reviewed it before. As a reviewer, I can say, looks okay. No change. Close that. And then this is another one. And then I can go down to the one that's new. Perhaps spend a little more time looking at that. I may have a comment here for the admin. Potential relationship. And comment. Also, as the reviewer, before I continue doing my dispositions, I can look and see all of the review comments I have here that I've entered. And I can go back down and set my recommended dispositions. So when Renee showed the configuration, she showed how you could set up different levels of dispositions within the system. And here's an example of the recommended dispositions that the reviewer can provide. So these are recommendations that will then go to the COI admin, who will make the disposition that will eventually appear in the proposal, as you saw earlier today. So in this case, as the reviewer, I will go in and say, yes, this is a potential relationship, but we've managed it, or I'm going to click through these quickly in the interest of time. Actually, I'm going to make this one no conflict, and then call this one a potential relationship. So in this case, I have one financial entity across the board. If I had more than one financial entity, I would be able to indicate a recommended relationship for each financial entity and research project combination. And then in addition to that, for the overall project, I would say based on all these individual recommended relationships, overall, I think this is the disposition that the project should have. So that's my role as a reviewer. And then I can complete my review. And at this point, the COI admin may get an email indicating that a review has been completed, and they can go in and follow up. So I'm going to sign out as our reviewer and go in as the admin. And go to my admin dashboard. And again, here I can see all of my disclosures that have a status in which I would want to look at. I can decide to filter out the expired ones and then go straight to the ones that are submitted for approval. At this point, I'm going to say I'm going to keep working on the disclosure from Della Woods, and I'm going to see what the reviewer put in terms of comments and recommendations. So I can go down here and see that for these projects, the reviewer has indicated specific recommendations for the disposition. If I had more than one reviewer, that would appear here. I'd be able to see each recommendation from each reviewer. In this case, I only have one, but I can go ahead and see that for additional detail. And also I can see the reviewer's comments. Another thing that I could do, if I wanted to send any of the reviewer's comments back to the investigator, I could do that by clicking Show to Reporter. And this would mark the comment so that if I send the disclosure back to Della Woods for revisions, this comment would show as is. Or I could go ahead and type a different comment to explain it slightly different than the reviewer would. I have those options as the COI admin. I can also add comments that are essentially for the compliance, the COI compliance office. So I could say, this looks good. And if I don't indicate that it's visible to the reporter or the reviewer, it's a comment that'll stay basically in-house for the COI admins to view. And comment there. And one thing you can see is all of the comments on a particular section will appear in order, and they also have the ability for the admin in this case, because they initiated the comment on the admin side, I can edit it before completing it. Another thing that's available to the COI admin is the project dispositions that they can set. So they can go ahead and based on the reviewer recommendations, they can go through and say, I think I agree or I don't agree, and this is the disposition that is set by the COI admin is the one that will appear in the proposal. So for our new proposal, I'm going to say, yes, I think this is a potential relationship for both that financial entity and research project relationship, and for the overall project disposition. And then here I can also go in, and if I want to update the management plan that has been here before or add an additional plan, depending upon your process, I could do that here. Also, while I'm on this panel, you can see here that I had assigned Trevor Duggins as the reviewer earlier today, and then a few minutes after that, he jumped in, completed his review, and sent it back to me. If I needed to send this back, either after the disclosure had been revised by the investigator and sent back, or if I had an additional question, wanted them to revisit their recommendations, I could reassign it to Trevor Duggins just by clicking this button, or I can leave it as is. I could also add additional reviewers. So when it comes to the additional review section, there's a lot of flexibility depending upon your process. The other thing that Renee mentioned briefly with regards to the reviewer assignment, there is a configuration that's available for people who have a departmental review process. So if you want to, based on the primary units of your investigators in the person module of Kuali Research, you could configure COI to then assign reviewers that would be responsible for people based on their home unit. So that's also an option. And that auto assign would then happen at the same time that the disclosure is submitted to the COI admin. So they don't need to take the separate step of adding department approvers if that's part of their process. So I'm going to go ahead at this point, and I'm going to approve this disclosure for Della Woods. And now I'm going to go back into that proposal and demonstrate the update. So now if I go in and go to the personnel section, I can see that Della Woods, her disclosure status is now up to date, and the disposition status is potential relationship. So at this point, if I'm the OSP administrator or some other admin that's responsible for verifying that this proposal has up-to-date conflicts of interest disclosed before the proposal submitted, I can see the only two personnel that I need to worry about now are Allison Kate and Inez Chu. So now I'm going to exit out of this and go back in and show very quickly what it will look like for Inez Chu, who is our remaining reporter who has not done a disclosure in the system yet. So when I log in here, I will show you one more of the configuration pieces that Renee mentioned earlier. So in this case, I'm going to, for the first time, complete a disclosure as Inez Chu, and I am going to answer yes to some of the screening questionnaires. And by doing that, when I get to the next step, you'll see I get this error. And this is based on one of the configurations that Renee spoke about. So because I answered yes to some of the screening questions, then a validation is in place saying that I must add a new financial entity. I need an active financial entity before I can go any further in the disclosure process. I also have the option to go back and look at my questions. Maybe I answered something wrong, but this is really to enforce that, yes, based on the screening questionnaires, this reporter should be adding an a significant financial interest, and to make sure that they do that before getting through the process, then either attempting to submit or being able to submit. So this here, until I add a financial entity, I will not be able to get to the next step. So those are the key things that we wanted to show you today. Now I'm going to show you our slides. And then thank you for being with us today. As we wrap up here, we're looking through the questions. So that's the demo portion of our webinar. Please take the opportunity right now to submit any additional questions you may have. Also, feel free to submit a question even if you want a personal answer. So just note that as private in the chat, and then we can get back to you directly. If you have any questions and we're not able to get to them over the next few minutes, then we're happy to reach out to you individually after the webinar has been completed. And also a reminder, this presentation has been recorded, and we will be sending out a link after we've processed that recording, and you'll be able to share that with others as well. So getting into the questions. So the first question I see here is, the email example you had for Della Woods, is the message in the email customizable? Yes, that is a great question. I'm actually going to show some of those options. Since we have the time, I'd always rather show than just describe. So if I go in as a COI admin, so I'm going to log out. And I realize it's a lot of logging in and out as different users, but we really wanted to show you the full flow throughout the process. So now I'm going to go back in as an admin and show you the configuration screen that we showed earlier. The email notifications are customizable in several ways. So one is you can decide which email notifications you want to use. And you can see on this configuration page, there's a few sections, and I'll scroll down because I have them all open and enabled right now. First, there's a set of admin notifications. So these are the notifications that will come to the COI admins. And as these are configured, you can also go ahead and edit the subject. So we do have for our out-of-the-box, if you download our software or if you're working with us as a hosted customer, we do have actually some basic emails that you can start from, but we know that everyone likes to use their own wording in a number of different ways, but you can go in and you can configure the subject and change that, as well as the body. You can also see a few things here. So currently we've configured these to use HTML. We are currently using tags. We have a new feature on the horizon in the next month that will allow you to apply bold and paragraphs and some of the formatting that are available in the instructions, for example, to be able to do that with a rich text editor rather than having to type in these tags. But you can use HTML formatting in the current version. Also, you can decide which data variables you might want to include in your emails. So in this case, we want to say the COI admin may want to know who is the reporter that's submitting it when they are submitting it. So that's what these pieces are here. And then I can go and I could cancel or update that. So that's one area of configuration. So I could also decide, oh, I'm going to get way too many emails if, as a COI admin, I'm notified every time a new disclosure is submitted by a reporter. I can just disable this notification and save my change. And then COI admins will not get emails when a new disclosure is submitted, which might be preferable if you're going into the system every day just to look at your dashboard. So admin notifications, also they can be notified when a reviewer has completed their review. And when a disclosure is resubmitted. So that's a scenario by which a reporter has submitted the disclosure, the admin and perhaps a reviewer as well has provided comments, and those comments went back to the reporter. And one thing to add that I don't think I mentioned earlier about the review comments is the review comments do not show the name of the reviewer. All of that remains anonymous. So when it goes back to the reporter, they'll see the comment, but they won't know who made that comment specifically. So that's what the scenario is if the reporter has revised their disclosure and sent it back. And then there's also a number of notifications related to reporter emails. So in this case, which I showed at the very beginning of my portion of the demo, is the action required. COI disclosure needs to be updated based on a new project. And here you can see some of the data elements that I had included are project role, project number, and a link that takes the reporter directly to their dashboard. So when they log in, they can go straight to where they need to be. And then an approval update, some of the other, or an update to the reporter saying that their disclosure was approved is available. And then also we have some additional notifications to reporters about expiration dates and upcoming expiration dates. The last two notifications that we have currently are related to the additional reviewer, and this is to notify any assigned reviewer when they have a disclosure that's in their court to review. So that is the response to that question, and now I'm going to check and see if there are any other questions. So can the admin assign a review date that corresponds to a meeting rather than in addition to a reviewer? So currently there is not an additional review date that they could assign. That is something that we will plan to do in the future. Can the reviewer ask questions to the investigator? Can the COI admin ask reviewer questions? So the way the question functionality would work is at this point associated with the review comments. So the review comments can go back and forth, and they can do that for the admin and the reviewer as the review has been assigned to the reviewer. At this point, the questions that would go back to the investigator from a reviewer would be filtered through the COI admin. So first the reviewer would send their comments back to the admin, and then the admin would decide whether or not those questions should go back to the reporter, and then they would not go back until the disclosure itself is sent. Let me see if I can find very quickly. I have about 3 minutes, I think, to find one that might fit the bill. So here, for example, I have a disclosure that I believe has a number of review comments. So here is an example. It's not a real-time chat functionality, but there is a correspondence that you can use in your process between COI reviewer and then also from COI admin to COI reviewer and then COI admin to reporter. So in this case, you can see a thread of comments where initially Jeff McGregor, who is the COI admin and the one that I'm currently logged in as, he put in a comment asking the reviewer that he assigned this to, and it could be more than one reviewer, to provide a comment on a particular financial entity. Then here, the reviewer, who is Trevor Duggins, responded and said more detail is needed. So as the COI admin, I could decide that I want this to be shown to the reporter. And actually, let me go down. I was about ready to show it there, but I think it's a little out of context. So this is in context to this one financial entity here. So here I could decide to show this to the reporter. And you can see now that this comment is visible to the reporter. It's a comment that was made by the reviewer, but can be passed forward now that as the admin, I've indicated that could happen. Also, I could send my comment as well, or I could hide that. And then what happens is that the comments that are marked as show to the reviewer, when you send back your disclosure to get revisions and responses from the reporter, will appear for the reporter. And that's where they can see that they have to revise it. And they'll be able to see any of the comments that were marked as show to the reporter. As you can see, it just says comment from COI admin. So that's just generic COI admin. We're not putting a name here. And this is where the reporter, in an answer to a reviewer asking questions to the investigator, the way the investigator would respond is by doing a response within this section here. So they could say comments and done. And then this comment from the reporter would then be sent back to the admin, who could then forward it to the reviewer. So there's not a direct conversation, but there are ways to facilitate those conversations within the system. And it looks like we have about 10 minutes left. And I'm looking through the questions, so please bear with me if there's a little bit of a pause. So what triggers the update required to disclosure status is one question. So I think that was somewhat related to some of the things that Renee showed. One of the things that would trigger an update to a disclosure status would be if a person is named on a proposal or an award, depending upon how you've configured the system. Getting back to Renee. And I don't know if, Renee, you want to jump in and answer this one.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what your institutional requirements are going to be, and how you configure the disclosure requirements in the module. You can select it for proposal, protocol, and awards. So essentially, any new one of these projects could trigger the disclosure update, or disclosure update or disclosure requirement. So it really is dependent on your school's process.
Yeah, and then as Renee, you mentioned before, the project roles. So if somebody's named as a co-investigator, in this case, in Hawaii's case, they do all for their proposals. But for example, if you decided that people would not need to disclose if they're a key person on an award, and you did not select that, if they were named on an award that say is an active status or a pending status, and you want them to disclose on that, if they were a key person, they would not have to disclose. But if they're a co-investigator, principal investigator, or an MPI, then they would. So a lot of it is related to the disclosure requirements. And then also to recap, there is the configuration point here about do not require researchers with no entities to have to update their annual when they have a new project. So that's something that Hawaii is using that would be available to others as well.
And then also the sponsor hierarchy too.
Yes, that's a good point, Renee. So the third factor in all of it is the sponsor hierarchy. So currently what you can do if you're configuring the new COI module is within the Kuali Research System Administration section, you could configure a sponsor hierarchy for COI that would say these are the sponsors that you want to disclose on. So if a project meets all of the other criteria, but is a sponsor that's not part of the project or the disclosure hierarchy, then that project would not trigger an update. In Hawaii's case, as Renee mentioned, they're doing all disclosures, or doing disclosures for all sponsors, so they're not using the sponsor hierarchy that way. And I have about 5 minutes to the end. Look through. I don't know if, Renee, there's anything you wanted to add after we've gotten through everything while I'm looking through the questions again.
Thinking about it.
Let's see. So it looks like there's another question. What is the process for a university interested in using Kuali Research System? So that is really about contacting us, and then we can follow up with you to do demos, talk about our product, and give you further information. Okay, so I think that's about it. I do want to wrap up a few things and mention again the Kuali Days conference that is coming, and also our next Kuali Research webinar will be on understanding Kuali Research's proposal hierarchy feature. So for those of you who are using proposal hierarchy or considering it, that will be something that you'll be wanting to sign up for. There's information here. We'll be finalizing the dates and things shortly, but that will be our next planned webinar. Also, we have a link here, and I can put this in a better view so it's a little bigger. We have a link here for news and events calendar that talks about other upcoming webinars and events that may also have to do with other products in the Kuali suite. So please feel free to visit that. And then I'm also going to go back. Oh, I went too far. And remind everybody about the Kuali Days conference. It is in November this year, November 14th through 18th in San Diego. So please visit our website for that, and I hope everyone can make it. And lastly, I want to thank Renee for being part of not only this demonstration, this webinar, but just part of the design and development of the new COI module, and also being one of the pioneers in implementing it. So thank you, Renee.
I just want to say thank you to everybody as well for joining us. Thanks, Jen, for awesome support.
It's our pleasure. All right, well, we hope to see you next time. And again, we will be sending out a recording. We try to get the recording out within 24 to 48 hours of a webinar. We'll send it to the email that you use to register, and you'll be able to share the link to the recording to other people in your institution or colleagues that were not able to join us today. So thank you again, and if you have additional questions and want to reach out to us one-on-one, feel free to do that as well.